Hello, everyone, and welcome into CrushTheStreet.com. We're gonna have a really great interview today, really refreshing. Get a great update of what is going on in the crypto markets, and we got someone on the line who has been a great uh, mentor for the channel. He came on to Crush the Street and really encouraged us at the right time to look into Bitcoin, and we really appreciate that. Many of us are forever grateful to the change that we've seen in our lives due to what we've seen in Bitcoin. So without any further ado, I have Vortex on the line. He's a Bitcoin enthusiast. He's the host of the Crypto Cast Network. He's also got a programming course that he offers. It's programmingwithbitcoin.com. I'll let him explain a little more about it, but he's been in the space prior to 2017 Bitcoin euphoria all the way back to 2012, and he's still here post 2017 Bitcoin euphoria. So we got a lot to talk about. Vortex, thanks for coming on the line with me today.
Oh, thank you so much, Kenneth. I really appreciate the opportunity. I listen to your show all the time, so I know that it's been invaluable for a bunch of people. So I just really appreciate the opportunity, and just keep up the great work, man. I'm loving it.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that. Many people think that Bitcoin and blockchain was a fad, right? You know, it was Pogs or Beanie Babies. It's one of these things. And I really want to bring someone like you on to show people that there's real fundamental growth happening in the space. And, you know, just to get this started, where are we right now with Bitcoin in your mind? Are we in a bear market, stagnant market, bull market, or is the floor about to fall out from under Bitcoin? And, you know, are we going down to 1,000?
Yeah, so it's some great questions in there, and really, the hype is kind of settled down a little bit, right? So where we are right now, in macro terms, with Bitcoin, it's still early days. We're still not looking for $100,000 of Bitcoin until around 2020-ish or somewhere around there. So we're still very, very early days. A lot of opportunity still to get in, and there's a lot of hype around blockchain right now, but the thing is that people like Jimmy Song, he goes into these conferences and he tells people that, look, guys, there is a lot of hype, and it's mostly hype. You have to understand that really most of the innovation is sort of happening in Bitcoin, and it's kind of this euphoria, this .com euphoria that is sort of taking over at all of these blockchain conferences. And it's really unfortunate because there's a lot of great people out there that want to do, change the world and do a lot of great things. And unfortunately, a lot of them are scamming people, and a lot of the time, most of the times, they don't even know that they're scamming people. So we can get into a little bit about that. But with Bitcoin, my personal opinion, we're always in a long-term bull market. If you look at the chart, if you zoom out, I always tell everybody, when in doubt, zoom out, right? You can zoom all the way out and you can see we're still just, this huge upswing. So always long-term bull pretty much for Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin essentially adds a zero every 2 years. So it's hard to not say we're ever not in a long-term bull market with Bitcoin, but we are definitely in a short-term bear market. Tone Vays was one of the earliest people that I know to call this bear market. I think he started calling it all the way in the end of January when we couldn't break new all-time highs again after that big bounce, after the big V dip that we went into there and the correction. So we are definitely still in a short-term bear market. How long this could last, it's anybody's guess, because what we've traditionally seen in Bitcoin is the bull markets last roughly twice as long as the bear markets. So we were in a 2+ year bull market, the last bull market. So this one, we're almost, according to that, we'd almost be halfway through 8-9 months here into the bear market. So, right now it's anybody's guess, but, there's a couple different choices. And personally, my opinion is that we're either going to have a rally this fall, right? Or we're going to have a rally next summer. It has to be pretty much one of those two areas. If you look back at the history of Bitcoin, this is when Bitcoin rallies happen. And it's pretty much always cyclical, and of course we have the halving coming in a couple of years. And what happens is usually there's a big halving rally roughly, 22 months or so before that. So really kind of everything seems to paint a picture of either going to be this fall or next summer. And when that rally happens, it's going to be big, because remember, we're still capitulating. There still has to be some more pain. We still have Ripple worth way too much, guys, way too much. So we still have to go down maybe a little bit, and definitely though have some sideways. We need some sideways. We need some stability. We need to be able to build that floor so that we can then start stepping up, and then have our crazy parabolic rally that we have. So it's always, it repeats itself every time. We have this huge, crazy bull run. We crash back down. We capitulate. We go sideways. We we stair step up, and then we have a parabolic run, and then we repeat the thing over again. So that's essentially where we are, in my opinion, with Bitcoin, is that we're about halfway or a little bit over halfway through this bear market.
Yeah, that's a solid analysis there, and you bring up so many important historical trends that we have seen, which might lend itself to what we can expect here going forward. So that's interesting. You brought up something regarding the other markets, and I read something. It said 80% of projects, that came out during 2017 were scams, right? And so we're in a little different environment right now, and maybe we could just touch on this a little bit. Do you see a lot of the focus and the development and attention and capital going into Bitcoin now in this current environment? Or is it still being spread out through so many of the different altcoins that are out there?
Sure. So it's interesting. That's a great, interesting question, because it's sort of both and not at the same time. So what we're seeing right now is with the Bitcoin space is there is just an insane amount of innovation. I mean, a really, really, really large amount of innovation. More and more papers coming out. More and more universities teaching about Bitcoin. So we're seeing this huge influx of development within Bitcoin. Now, the thing is, it's a little bit different though than what we're seeing in blockchain. So in blockchain, what we're seeing still is these multi-million dollar, $20 million valuations for these currencies and these projects without almost any code at all. So we're still seeing some of the hype in there. Investors' expectations have been adjusted a little bit since, in this bear market, but people are still just thinking that it's a good idea to diversify into all of these different cryptos, when of course they're all backed up by Bitcoin. And it's funny, it's very, very, very risky. We're talking crazy amounts of risk when you're trying to invest in some of these ICOs, especially when they simply aren't proven. Now, Bitcoin has been around for about 10 years, so it continues to prove itself. We have the Lindy effect, where every day that Bitcoin survives, it gets that much of a greater chance of still surviving in tomorrow, right? So Bitcoin continues to hold on, continues to survive, and not just survive, but like I said, what we're seeing right now is we're seeing it thrive. I am seeing projects all over the world right now in Bitcoin, specifically to do with Lightning. There is a lot of talk, a lot of activity, a lot of meetups, a lot of mailing lists, a lot of podcasts, all talking about Lightning, because this is the promised scaling solution for Bitcoin. This is what we're going to have. This is the order of magnitude scaling solution that Bitcoin needs to be able to eventually scale to the entire planet. So really, that's kind of what we're seeing mostly in Bitcoin is technology and focus around the Lightning Network, and just a lot of innovation there. Point of sale systems, wallets, all sorts of great stuff there. But then in the blockchain space, we're still sort of seeing just throw everything at the wall, see what sticks kind of thing. We're still seeing people release projects that with unproven developers. We're still seeing people release projects without code. We're still seeing projects being released with just the white paper. And we're still seeing all of this misunderstanding of the word blockchain, because there's a lot of hype around it. Right now, as it stands, blockchain in one of these conferences could mean anything. I mean, I was just at a conference where I saw people rapping about blockchain, the blockchain gang. I forget what it's called. It was so bad. But look, these people are up there just talking about got to save the world with blockchain and all these things. There's just this huge amount of hype, huge amount of misunderstanding. We have to bring it back down, and that is what is so great about bear markets, is they really do reset investors' expectations and start to get the ball rolling again in reality land, not in some crazy far off land. So I think that we're going to get there. People are going to get there. There are still solid projects out there to invest in, and of course, there's always the rock solid store of value that backs up the entire crypto space, which is Bitcoin. But again, it's all about your risk tolerance. So right now, I'm continuing to see more and more innovation around Lightning Network, and that gets me really excited, because after Lightning Network comes the next step, which is merchant adoption, and that's happening simultaneously. Remember, all these things are happening simultaneously. We have Lightning Network scaling orders of magnitude. We have merchant adoption that's going to come soon. Right after that, we're pretty much in parallel with these point of sale systems, and then we have the financialization of Bitcoin that's also happening simultaneously. So, with the ETFs, everybody talking about the ETFs, and of course we have the futures now and the options. So all of this stuff is happening simultaneously around Bitcoin, and the ecosystem continues to grow larger and larger and larger with more and more people and more research. And so really, I think it's the fundamentals of Bitcoin have just never ever been better. And with blockchain, it's still we're still trying to rein in the brand. We're still trying to figure out what blockchain means for the average person in that realm.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. And I was watching mainstream media, CNBC, and they were interviewing Roger Ver, and he wasn't really representing Bitcoin Cash much. He was just, just talking about crypto in general. And I could just see the disrespect coming from the host as they were talking to him, and the way their attitude was towards crypto, still very demeaning to it as a real financial asset. And I guess it's going to continue to take some time, but really the fundamentals are continuing to build out until it's really not so funny anymore, right? I mean, no one was really laughing too much when Bitcoin went to 20,000. It was like, okay, well, I didn't think that was possible, right? So, here we are. I'm curious. You've already touched on some of it, but maybe you can just give us some of the fundamentals that you believe are happening in the more macro space, but then also, allude to what's happening on the technical level that has you excited. And I know that's close to your heart. You teach on this and you educate on this and you understand it very well. So you really have the pulse for, where this is going, and that it's not just dying away, some sort of fad.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, like I say, the fundamentals really have never been stronger. We're seeing adoption. We're seeing more wallets. We're seeing more development. We're seeing huge innovation around the Lightning Network. We're seeing that type of adoption. And maybe I can give a couple of predictions to sort of give you an idea, about how fast this is moving. Because like I say, what we're seeing right now is huge development around Lightning. So right now, my predictions are by the end of next year, the entire ecosystem wide will be integrated into Lightning. So that means every wallet, every single exchange will have to touch Lightning somehow, because Lightning will become this interoperable application layer that sits above Bitcoin, the Internet of Money that is Bitcoin. And so what we need is if you have a blockchain and you want it to actually transact with the rest of the world, you're going to have to make it interact with Lightning, because that is where everybody else is interacting and communicating. That's the language that we can interop all of these blockchains with. And there's some other projects that are competing for that space right now, like ILP, from the Ripple team and things like that. But in my opinion, that's really got no shot. The layer, the interoperable layer has to be cryptographically fundamentally tied to a store of value, and that is Bitcoin. And so there's just nothing else out there that we see with that type of with that type of scalability, with that type of security, and with that type of amazing fundamentals. So with Lightning really completely saturating the ecosystem by the end of next year, right? Then we're looking at merchant adoption coming after that. So by 2021, merchant adoption will be taking up in a huge space. Because remember, it's not about numbers per se, because these are adoption curves. So it's about these huge hockey stick patterns. And so when I say 2021, I think that the merchant adoption at that point will be really starting to take up the hockey stick, really starting to take up the top of the charts to where it can go parabolic, 2023, 2024. And of course, by that time, governments start to hold Bitcoin. And then by 2028, it's pretty much all over. It'll be talking, it won't be interesting anymore. It'll be like talking about the dollar. So we're still very, very early days in that sense. But, as far as the technology goes, again, just huge amounts of innovation specifically around Lightning, around payment channels, around making that very easy. Because you see, Lightning is a great technology, but it's not ready for the mainstream yet. There's just a few more little components that have to be implemented in there. And that is what the developers, that's what the people around the world are working on right now. It's just that last mile, just that last piece, just that last couple of little features that will make it just be like, oh, yeah. What do you mean the world didn't work like this? This is how the world works. This is seamless. Of course, I can send you Bitcoin instantaneously from anywhere in the world for little to no fee. Of course, that's how it works. So we're going to get there, and we're getting there very, very fast. So the technicals around Lightning is fantastic. But then you have all of this, because scaling is now sort of solved with Lightning. Now the big talk about everybody's mind in Bitcoin is privacy. This is what everybody's talking about on Twitter, on their podcast. This is sort of the big thing in the conversation right now. So there's a bunch of work being done on this. And of course, Lightning Network is a huge privacy win as well, right? Because it is encrypted by default. It does use onion routing. There is no way to track, the amounts inside of there. So that is beautiful. But in addition to that, there really is some very privacy-focused tech coming out. And so one of those technologies is something called Schnorr signatures, which is really, really great, because the Bitcoin, it could have actually used Schnorr in the beginning, but instead chose to go with ESDA or ECDA. I always forget the acronyms on that. But ECDA, they went with that first because that was a more proven technology. Schnorr was still under a patent. It wasn't really proven yet. But now the patent ran out for Schnorr a couple years ago, so it is completely public domain, and it is orders of magnitude more efficient than the current signature scheme that we have now with Bitcoin. So we're going to have a lot of wins with that in efficiency. So we're talking, smaller blocks, more efficient propagation of blocks. But again, privacy. What you can do with Schnorr is you can actually aggregate thousands and thousands of signatures into a single signature. So what this means is that we can now do powerful multi-sig like to thousands and thousands of people in a very, very, very efficient, scalable way. And that's the big thing about Bitcoin is all these technologies that I'm describing, Lightning, Schnorr, these are scalable technologies. These are technologies designed to work on top of a store of value, on top of the world's sound money that can serve everybody. Not like CryptoKitties, right? That seems to go down, just when there's a little bit of activity. So with Bitcoin, we are seeing this technologies with Lightning and Schnorr. That's really a big one. And then another win for privacy is some work that Nopara Adam Fisker, Nopara 73, is working on with his Wasabi wallet, which is really, really cool. This Wasabi wallet allows for Chaumium coin join transactions, which means that other people join their coin together when they spend a transaction so that you can't actually tell where the outputs and inputs come from. So you can't tell who spent what where. And that is going to be a big, big win. Now, of course, again, guys, this is all early days. Privacy tech on Bitcoin, really, for the most part, outside of Lightning, is years away. That's our next goal. And that's what's great about technology in Bitcoin is that whenever you're looking at any of the technologies in Bitcoin, all the papers that are coming out, what everybody's working on, everything is always like 2 years ahead of where we are right now. Like everything, we're always thinking ahead. We're always in the future, and that is what's really amazing about Bitcoin is we are always thinking adversarially and always thinking about the future, always thinking about efficiency, optimization, guys, and backwards compatibility is really what drives innovation in Bitcoin, and that's what drives the developers, I believe, to innovate as well. So that is just a scratching the surface of sort of what's coming out with Bitcoin, and you can pay attention to this too. I encourage Kenneth, your audience, to go out and check out something called the Bitcoin OpTech newsletter, which is great. It's being put out by a couple of people in the Bitcoin community that tries to update the ecosystem with very important weekly updates within the Bitcoin ecosystem that may or may not affect your business. So you might want to check that out if you are a Bitcoin business. That's one. And of course you have Twitter and Reddit. But again, guys, so much information coming out. It's hard to put it all into a nice little neat sized bite piece for you.
Well, you do a great job of explaining it. And I want to ask you, go back to the financialization of the crypto space. With the Bitcoin ETF being rejected, time and time again, what are the hurdles that we're seeing here? And do you see this being something that is overcome with time and just development of the space?
Absolutely. So in my opinion, the financialization of Bitcoin is, of course, an inevitable event. There is just no way that Bitcoin can't touch everything. Bitcoin is money, the most sound money that we've ever had in human history. So of course it's going to touch the financial markets, right? So this is what we're seeing. We've already seen some options markets with the CBOE. We've already seen some futures, right, with the CME and various things like that. But that's, again, just the beginning. Your audience, I'm sure, will be aware that that's just the first couple of steps, the first couple of flywheels that have to start spinning before we can spin the next couple of flywheels, right? And so the next couple of flywheels do involve what you say is the ETF. That is going to be a huge, huge win for the financialization of Bitcoin because that is the custody solution that is missing for institutional investors. They will not be able to, of course, most of them will maybe in private, hold some Bitcoin, but on the books, guys, on the actual papers, on the company's docket, you can't. There's just no real safe solution right now to hold private keys to invest in Bitcoin in that'll have a nice custodial solution for you, right? So right now, there's a couple of companies out there that are doing this, like with BitGo. They definitely secure a vast majority of exchanges within the ecosystem. But if you're a huge billionaire, billionaire investor up on Wall Street, you're not going to put billions, or hundreds of millions of money into something called BitGo. It's just a very new brand. It's not proven. You need something like State Street, right? Something that's well known, something that that people have decades plus of faith in and proven track record. So that is really a big part that we're working on right now in the financialization of Bitcoin. That's the next step. That's the next flywheel is custody. custodial solutions for these big, huge institutional investors, for these big, huge institutions, so that we can do all sorts of things with that, right? We can have retail investors even start using that with their 401ks and other things like that. But the ETF is going to set off the next flywheel, and so we're going to have one after another, and the dominoes are all going to completely fall into place. But this takes years. This takes a lot of time of research into this, because remember, guys, this is brand new technology. This is bleeding edge stuff, and Wall Street is for the most part run on 70s technology built back in the 70s on mainframe stuff. So this is not easy, and but we are getting a hang of it, and there is demand. Let me repeat that, guys. There is huge demand from investors for these institutional companies to start holding Bitcoin. There is huge demand. People have, you can say JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon, they've seen all that. We've seen them. We've seen the quotes in the media that say we can't ignore our investors. We have investor demand. People want to hold this asset, this brand new digital asset class, the first new asset class in 40 years. It's going to definitely raise a few eyebrows. So that's what's coming right now is the ETFs. I think personally that it's just a matter of time. Probably not going to see one this year, right? I mean, it's a little bit early. My opinion, we're going to most likely get one next year, and when after the first one comes, then the next one, and the next one, of course, before you know it, we'll have half a dozen plus of these, and then that'll bring in just huge amounts of liquidity. So that's really the next big step for that. And I don't see too many hurdles other than just time. Just time, meeting with the regulators, making everybody happy, trying to put something on the plate that's going to make everybody happy. And there was some recent there was a recent news article about people saying that they are going to make regulations a little bit easier for the ETF, specifically regarding cryptocurrency. So they are actively working on this. I don't believe any of that is passed yet, but they're working on this. People are having discussions about how are we going to offer this product to our customers, because there is huge demand.
Vortex, so what are you working on specifically that has you excited about the space? Obviously, you have your course that you're offering. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about this and what you are working on that, again, just has you plugged into what is going on in Bitcoin?
Absolutely. And before I answer that, let me just finish the last part with one quick thing, one quick sentence, so that everybody understands. Bitcoin doesn't need Wall Street. Wall Street wants Bitcoin. One more time, guys. Bitcoin doesn't need Wall Street, but Wall Street wants Bitcoin. And that's just the reality of the situation. Nothing can really stop, economic certainty. This is just economics asserting themselves into the reality. This finite supply of Bitcoin will force the world's liquidity into it. There is no other better asset class to store your value. So that's just a big point I wanted to make sure that your audience knows, is that the financialization of Bitcoin will come. It is an inevitability, but Bitcoin in the end doesn't need it. If everybody pulled out all of their money out of the banks right now and put it into crypto, we wouldn't need an ETF, right? We only need an ETF because we put our money in these institutions, and we trust these. We put our money in our trust in these institutions, and these institutions are telling us that, look, guys, we can't support Bitcoin yet. So right. So it is coming, but again, guys, Bitcoin doesn't need Wall Street or the ETFs. Bitcoin will continue to innovate. Most of these software developers aren't even really focused on the Wall Street part, the financialization part. They're working on the low level stuff, the protocol level stuff, to make sure that this stuff doesn't break, to make sure that Bitcoin's security continues, because it is to this day the most secure financial asset on the planet. There is no other bank that can boast the uptime that Bitcoin has. Banks and credit cards, they go down all the time. Bitcoin doesn't go down. So that's just one point I wanted to make. Now, let's talk a little bit about sort of the stuff that I'm working on in the space. Personally, I am a software developer, but I'm a web developer. So I actually mostly do web application development, backend stuff like that, and not really any type of low-level protocol development kind of things. So for me, I think that there was a lot of there's a lot of opportunity there, because there's a lot of talk about getting people to work on Bitcoin. Jimmy Song has a great course called programmingblockchain.com, which will teach you the low-level actual mathematics of this type of cryptographic security. I mean, we're talking elliptic curve cryptography and all that kind of stuff. But I thought that I think that's a very specialized field, and there's a lot bigger field for regular developers, for application developers like myself, for people who build websites, for people who build applications for Windows or Mac, just regular stuff. And so I personally think that there can be huge demand for working with Bitcoin, but they're just not being serviced right now. So my course, programmingwithbitcoin.com, is trying to focus on these people, trying to focus on your average regular developer that wants to begin integrating Bitcoin into their application, that wants to learn more about Bitcoin, figure out how they can utilize it in their own company, figure out how they can take advantage of it, because there's just a myriad of ways, right? So I think that that's going to be pretty big. Right now we're targeting specifically C# developers, but we're going to try to expand the course eventually to other languages as well. But C# is a great language to learn. It's really, really simple. There's plenty of websites to learn, like Learn CS. LearnCS.org is a big one. Recommend that one. There's just so much information. It consistently is in the top 5 for people's favorite programming languages. So even if you don't know C#, hey, go check that out for a few months and then come take our course. We'd be more than happy to fill in any blanks that you need. But the big thing is that we teach the Bitcoin fundamentals. So you don't have to know anything about Bitcoin for this course. We will teach you all of that stuff, from the mining, proof of work, full nodes. We'll teach you all about that kind of stuff. And so I'm really excited about that. Really excited about getting more and more developers working with Bitcoin. And I have a Twitter account, so with a few followers on there. So I do try to keep up in the space that way as well. At the one Vortex, all spelled out, is my Twitter account, and that's where the majority of my actual communication in the crypto space happens these days, really is over Twitter. And so I recommend everybody follow me there. But what I'm seeing is that there's just a lot of demand for people to work with Bitcoin. And so I hope that this course can help with that. And then in addition to that, I am a content creator in the space as well. I've been on the World Crypto Network now for the past couple of years, and I've just recently started my own YouTube channel. This is called the CryptoCast Network, and I've started this with a couple of other friends. Right now, I'm the only main person on the channel, but I do have plans to bring in other shows as well. There's a few shows on there right now, such as Perspective, where we talk about the latest articles with the authors in the space, so we can give them so they can give a little bit more color and description and anything that they may have missed in the article in a nice audio video format. So that's a great show. We've had Jimmy Song on there and a couple other people. Then I got Deciphered. Deciphered is really fun because that's where we actually interview the software developers and the hardware developers in the space and get the low level on the ground stuff that what people are working on. So that's really fun, especially that's palpable for not just developers, but for businesses, right? Who maybe looking for opportunities where they can find out and take advantage of Bitcoin in some way. And so that's a great show for that as well. And then of course my classic, the Bitcoin News Show. That's the show that I've been doing for a couple of years, which is a weekly panel show where we bring on people to talk about the week's Bitcoin news. And so that's kind of what really keeps me plugged in is, being a content creator and just being on Twitter. I just recommend everybody open up a Twitter account and just start following people. There's just so many talented and great people in the space. I just can't complain at all. I've gotten so much help from people, and I've helped others as well. And there's just even from what I get from you, Kenneth, like, the show, interviewing people on the show, you're trying to help people. I just get this sense of camaraderie and the sense of wanting to help one another. Everybody's got that hand, right? Everybody's holding a hand to lift you up to the next level. That's what I see is just a many levels of hands holding up, everybody bringing everybody else up to the next level. And that is just really, really, really powerful. And I couldn't be more happy to be a part of this community.
Yeah, that is powerful. The power of synergy and, the rising tide lifting all boats. I believe in that very, very much. So, well, it doesn't get better than this, guys. Vortex on the line with us, a one-on-one. Vortex, thanks for coming on Crush the Street. I feel like that was a good kind of conclusion there. If you want to reach out to Vortex or learn more about it, we'll have the links in the description area. Vortex, thanks for coming on Crush the Street with me today.
Thanks so much, Kenneth. I had a great time, man. Hope to come on again soon.